Okay, so we left off last time that the Alter Rebbe has shown us that the only way to succeed is through simcha. That's it. That's the bottom line. That's very nice. But at the end of the day, who doesn't want to be with simcha? Everyone wants to be happy, right? The question is, there are a lot of things in life that make a person be not happy. That's our problem here, right? So the question now comes, how do I, so to speak, change my perspective on life, on different areas, in such a way that I will be able to be happy regardless of whether the issues are coming from the physical world, the spiritual world, or anything really from any place. So the Alter Rebbe is saying to us here, the issue is a matter of perspective. That's what we have to do. We have to use our brains, which are so powerful, right? Our brains are so powerful. And it's that tool which we need to use in order to change our perspectives on life. And by using the brain, we will be able to pull ourselves out of any ruts that we find ourselves in. Now, where are we going to start? We're going to start with things that go wrong in the physical world. Now, what do I mean by the physical world? So let's read inside for a little bit. It says like this. Vihine eitza hayutza. We are on page Lamed Gimel, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 lines down with the bold first word Vihine. Vihine eitza hayutza. So the piece of advice that the Alter Rebbe is giving us, litahir libo. To purify our hearts, right? Remember we used the word purify as opposed to tameh. Tameh is the inyan of death. Tahor is the inyan of life, right? We talked about that last time, right? And so he says how to purify our hearts, mikol atzuv, from all depression, v'nidnu daiga, and any type of worry, which obviously pulls us down, mimile da alma, from this world. And then he adds a very important word. He says, ve'afilu, and even. Bane chaye muzayne, even from the brachas of our children, our health, and our sustenance.
We're getting
so he says like this. We're getting what?
Brachas.
Children, bane, chaye, life, mizayne, sustenance. Moedah zois, it's known, lekol, to everyone, maim merazal, kishem shemivarech ala toiva b'chulu. Just like we make a blessing on the good, so also we make a blessing on the not so good. Pirshu b'Gemara, what does that mean? We explain in the Gemara, l'kibule b'simcha, that we have to receive everything b'simcha, meaning we don't make the same bracha. We know that when things are right, things are good, we make a bracha hatova hametiv. When things go bad, we make a bracha baruch dayan ha'emes. So we don't make the same bracha, but what we do is we are going to do it in a way of happiness. Just like the happiness would be revealed and like clearly to my eyes, ki gam zu l'toiva, because also this is for the good. Okay, first of all, the Rebbe says here afilu, even, meaning most of the time, right? People say to you, okay, I'm unhappy. What am I really unhappy about? A lot of times in our life, we're unhappy about the fact that I wanted to buy X and I didn't buy X. I wanted to do this and this didn't happen. Very, things. So the easy answer for that type of stuff is darf man nicht. You don't need it. What do you need? You don't need dafka, a sunroof on your car. No, okay, so you'll spend an extra less than $3,000, whatever. You don't need this, you don't need that. So Alter Rebbe says, wait, that's not what we're talking about here. That's an obvious thing. What we're talking about here are things that we do need. We need brachas in these areas. We all need brachas for our children, for our health, for our parnasa. These are the three areas that everyone needs blessings in. So even in these areas, he's saying, we can change our perspective. Now, there are bichlal 3 places in Tanya that we are going to address this issue. However, we're going to address it in 3 different ways. This way in chapter 26 is for sure the highest format of this. Let's start with the first way, so to speak, the lowest level. Okay, where do we see that? If you turn in your Tanyas to Igeres HaTshuva, right, the 3rd book of the Tanya, Igeres HaTshuva, and you turn to Perek Yud Beis, right, chapter 12. In the beginning of chapter 12, the Alter Rebbe begins by saying like this: Vitam hasimcha, the reason why a person should be happy, biyisure haguf, with the different difficulties that happen to the body, is lefi shehi toiva gedoyla v'atzuma lenefesh achoitas, because this is really ultimately a very good and positive thing, right, to the soul that did sins. Lemarke ba'olam hazeh, in order to clean it off in this world, v'lahatzila mehamirug begehenim, in order that what? In order that he should be saved from the cleansing processes of Gehenna. Ubefrat, and in particular, the Alter Rebbe brings in parentheses, B'doraseinu, in our generations, Elu, She'ein be'yacholas lisanos, we cannot fast, Kafi mispar kol hatzoimos, according to all the fasts that we should really do, according to the beginning of this book of Igeres HaTshuva, it goes through how many different fasts. If you do one thing, it's 84 fasts, and you do this thing, it's another, all these different fasts, right? Ela she'ein yecholas lisanos kafi mispar kol hatzoimos shebetikune, right, Shuvas HaArizal, which the Arizal explained to us in the books of the Kabbalah of the Arizal. Tzrichim lemiruk hanefesh la'atzilu mimiruk hagehenim. So we need to, so to speak, clean our bodies, clean ourselves off, in order that we should save ourselves from big time troubles in the world to come. Come on, Shekasuv HaRamban, Nachmanides says this, Zel Lashon b'Hakdama, right, in his introduction to, right, his explanation of Iyuv, the book of Job, Sha'afilu Yisurim Shal Iyuv, even all the difficulties, all the terrible situations that Job went through, which we all know about that, right? Ayin Shana, 70 years, Ein Lahen Erech Chlal Yisure HaNefesha Achas Begehenim, is not comparable to even one instant of the pain that the soul experiences in Gehenna, the 70 years of difficulties that Iyuv did. Ki eish echad mishishim, right? It's just like one, a fire is like, the fire down here is like 1/60th in the world to come. Okay, etc., etc. So, what is his point? What is Alter Rebbe's point here in this section of how to bring a person to change his perspective? The way the Alter Rebbe is looking at it is saying like this: look, bad things happen. Bad things are happening. But you know what? It's worth it. Why is it worth it? It's an investment. Right? I'm going to put down $100,000 today. So because of that, I can't make all these parties, I can't buy all these things, I can't do all this. But you know what? In Mirza Hashem, I'm going to get back hopefully $200,000 in a few years from now. So therefore, I'm willing to sacrifice myself right now in order that in the future things should be better for me. I can't use the money now. So I'll live on bread and water for the next 4 or 5 years until finally I can get my returns back. And it's worth it. Why? Because in the end, I'll get $200,000. That's the approach. That's the perspective. Who had a similar approach? If you look in the Gemara, there's a story about Rabbi Akiva, which I'm sure everyone has heard this story before. But let's just repeat it for argument's sake. Right? The story goes that after all the students of Rabbi Akiva passed away, right? That's remember the 24,000 students, right? That's why we fast, do all the things during the Omer. What happens? He knows that there's 5 different students in the south, and he wants to go and teach them, and he wants to continue that the Gemara and the Mishnayos and the whole oral Torah should be passed on. Amongst those students, Rabbi Meir, Rabbi Shimon, right? All the different things that we know from the history. Anyway, the famous story goes that he's traveling with his donkey, his rooster, and his candle, and along with his scrolls of Torah. And he goes to the village. And what happens when he goes to the village? He knocks on the door, on the first place to stay for the night. And what do they say to him? I'm sorry, we do not take people like you in our house overnight. And what does he answer? What does he answer? Anyone remember? Whatever Hashem does, Kol ma de Rahmana asa, whatever Hashem does is for the good. And he goes to the next house, and the next house, and the next house, and the next house, and everyone says, no good, no thank you. So he finds himself a nice, comfortable place in the woods, right? And he makes himself, in his fire, and he starts learning Torah. What happens then? What happens then is that the wind comes and blows out his fire.
Oh, yeah.
Right? And now what is he going to do? He can't learn Torah, right? All right, he knows at least Torah about Peh, but whatever, he can't learn it. So then what happens? A cat comes and kills his rooster. He's not going to be able to wake up in the middle of the night, right? And then what happens? And then a lion comes and eats his donkey. And of course he's very scared that he could have been killed and whatever. And if you look at the situation, this is a terrible situation. Horrible. I mean, come on. Everything. He just lost everything. And it doesn't make any sense. He's trying to learn Torah. He's trying to learn Torah all night. He's trying to wake up in the middle of the night to do Tikkun Chatzos or whatever. He's trying to do... What does God want from him at the end of the day? It seems like God is taking away everything from him, but what does he really want? Come on. He's sitting there. He's Rabbi Akiva at the end of the day. He wants to find a nice, comfortable place to stay for the night. He wants to learn Torah all night. He wants to wake up in the middle of the night. He wants to carry on with his mission to go and because of that, by the way, that's like the whole story. The whole oral Torah came down to that one time, and Rabbi Akiva, right, it came from him. It became like a bottleneck. And then he, because of the 5 students that he had, he was able to and that's continue the Torah, and that's why we have the whole Mishnayos and Gemara and everything to this day. But if you think about it, everything was terrible. And every time, what did he say? Everything that Hashem does is for the good. That's the approach. And of course we know what happens that these people, right, some thieves or bandits came in the middle of the night and took all the people of the town, they took them into hostages or whatever, they became slaves. And if they would have seen, who's that guy sitting out there in the forest, learning Torah, hanging out with the rooster, they would have gotten him too. So what do we see from this perspective? What we see is that even though it looked bad, and we're saying, this is bad. It's not good that they didn't accept him in the house. It's not good that his candle went out. It's not good that the rooster was killed. It's not good that the lion ate his donkey. But yet, at the end of the day, we see, wow, thank God, that saved his life. That saved the whole Torah. That saved everything. At the time, however, it didn't look good. That's this approach. This approach says everything Hashem does is for the good, and Hashem is just polishing me off. Hashem is just taking care of getting rid of all the dirt that I have on my soul and getting rid of all the problems I have, and it's just I have to become a little bit more broad-minded in my approach. And I have to see that nothing Hashem does is going to be bad. Hashem is the bus driver, and I have to just reframe my approach and recognize that even though it's bad today, tomorrow I'm going to see how ultimately it was good. Good? Clear? That's the first approach. Second approach. Turn to page in Igeres HaKodesh, right, which are the letters that were put together after, at the end of the Tanya. If you go to letter number 11. We just read it a few days ago, right? This is a very famous letter. The letter basically says, I'm going to read a little bit of it to you. Kuf Tes Zayin, that's the page that it's on, okay? So here in this letter, it says, Bira Inyan Hu Rak emuna emisis b'yotzer breishis. A person just has to have emuna in the yotzer breishis, in the Creator. Dahainu shebriya yesh mi'ayin, namely in the creation of something from nothing. Hanikra reishis chachma. B'hi chachmaso she'ena museges l'shum nivra. It's a chachma that no creation can really appreciate. He, right, Hazos, he, b'chol eis v'regesh misavim kol abruim yesh me'ayim chachmaso yisbarach. Everything is being created, yet nothing from something from Hashem, every moment. Machayes hakol, because she is bainim. When a person will meditate, ba'oime kavanasa, with the depth of his understanding, v'yitzayir b'daiso, and he will visualize in his mind, haviyaso me'ayin b'chol rega v'rega mamish, how he is being created, every single instant, from nothing. How could it possibly go up into his mind that anything is bad for him? Oh, shum yisurim, or any troubles, is only the same thing as we had before from children, health and sustenance. Oh, shari yisurim ba'olam, or anything else. Hari ayin shehi chachmasu yisbarach, the ayin, the nothing, which is the Eibish's chachma, hu makor ha'chayim. It is the source of life, v'hatayv, and good, v'oineg. Excuse me. And is the level of Aiden shalamayla ma'olam haba, which is beyond the world to come. Rak mipnei she'eno musag. This is the key. It's just that you don't understand. I don't understand. Lachein nidme lo ra. That's why it appears to us to be bad, or yisurim, or difficulties. Aval be'emes ein ra yored melamayla. There is no evil that comes from above. V'hakol toiv, everything is good. Rak she'eno musag legodlo. We just do not recognize, we cannot understand the greatness v'rav tuva, and how great it is. V'zeu ikra emuna. That's the main point of emuna. Should be shvila nivra ha'adam. That's why a person was created. Lahamin, to believe the leis asar panui minei. There's no place that he is absent from. Skip down to the period. And he says like this: Aval hamamin, someone who believes lo yichush mishum yisurim ba'olam, doesn't worry about any evil, any troubles in the world. B'chol inyanei ha'olam hein v'lav shavin etzlo b'hashava emisis. A very, very important line. Yes and no is completely equal to him. Right? Equanimity, total equality, totally one. V'misha ein shavin lo, anyone that is not equal for, mare ba'atzma shehu me'erev rav. He shows upon himself that he is from the erev rav, legarmai hu avdin, that he only is thinking about himself. And he goes on to say a few not such nice things here. And then he goes on to say, and this is the key point. Ki zed toiv lo v'noach lo, ki ikar brias ha'adam ba'olam hazehu b'shvil insoiso b'nisyonos elu. The main point of why a person was made was to be able to give him these nisyonos, challenges, in order to see what? Ladas es asher beluvavo, to see what is in his heart. Im yipane livavo achrei elokim acherim, if he's going to turn his heart after other gods, so to speak. Shehem taivas aguf, which are the desires of the body, which come from the sitra acher. And then skipping to the end, right, it says like this. The idea is, v'imken hakol tov b'tachli rak she'enu musag be'emen azu be'emes nase hakol tov. And by having this belief, by breaking through, by having this emuna and standing up to the challenge, right, everything will all of a sudden open up to the good. Gam begilu, and it'll become revealed. Shebe'emuna zu Mamin shehara hanidbe begalui kol chayaso humatoy va'elyon. He changes it, he opens it up, and all of a sudden, everything all of a sudden opens up to the good, and you see it as good. So this is a second level. This is a level that it appears to be bad, but through my pushing through, so to speak, pushing through and recognizing that there is nothing bad that comes from Hashem, I'm able to turn over the bad to the good. So this is a little bit of a different level than what we talked about before. Because I all of a sudden open it up, and all of a sudden everything is able to change. But it's based on me. It's based on how am I going to become affected, and what am I going to do in response to these negative experiences that are happening in my life.
This is with every challenge specifically?
Every challenge. Every challenge. And this is why, according to this letter, God created me and you. To be able to recognize that all these challenges are challenges to see what's in my heart and what am I going to do with it. But again, it's bad, but I can make it good by believing that it's coming from Hashem and everything Hashem does is for the good. And then it will change. It itself will change. And by me believing and breaking through. Now, that leaves us with no time, but let's just say briefly the approach that he does in Chavav. And I think it's important just to see that these are three different approaches. Each one has a value, but each one is lower, medium, highest. This is the highest level now. What does the Alter Rebbe say here? What is he going to say here? What he says here is the concept of there is no bad. Bad does not exist. Not that it is bad and it'll become good by me overcoming. Not like the first thing that we talked about, that it appears to be bad, but in the end you will see that, yes, it was bad, but it really saved me because it cleaned me off, but really bad is bad. I mean, it wasn't good that the lion ate my donkey, Rabbi was thinking, right? But Baruch Hashem, it did a better good. It saved me. Over here, the way the Alter Rebbe explains it is that everything is coming from Hashem, but there's two different levels in Hashem that He is interfacing with the world. There is the lower level of Hashem that is interfacing with the world, which is going to give out things that are revealed in a good way, revealed good. Then there's the higher level of Hashem, what we call the Yud Kei. And that level of Hashem, it is so good that it cannot be revealed down here in this world. It has to come into the world in what appears to be a negative way. What is this comparable to? Let's say that a student is learning with a teacher. So the teacher could teach on a very low level, and the student will understand everything perfectly. But let's say a teacher wants to teach something from a much higher level. He has to conceal it in such a way that the student will be able to get it. But even so, the student is trying, he's working very hard, but it's not so easy. It's hard, but it's much higher level. It's a much better thing. And that's why he makes reference to Gam Zu L'Tova. Now we're going to get to Gam Zu L'Tova in 1 second, but first we're going to mention a Gemara in Tainis. Anyone ever learned Tainis, right? The story of Choni Amagal, right? Everyone knows Choni Amagal, right? He made a circle around himself. That's why he's known as Choni Amagal. And he said, right, he's not leaving to this place unless it rains. And Hashem, right, starts by giving a drop of rain. And he said, that's not what I'm talking about. And then he says, Hashem came with this, right? What's the name of this recent hurricane that's in Florida? Hurricane what? Idalis, or something like that. Whatever. How do you pronounce it? Idalia. Had to come up with what kind of interesting name for a hurricane. Okay, anyway, so he comes with this, and what is his response? His response is that the Yidden can't receive such good. It's too high of a level. And with that, Hashem gives a regular rain. Gamzu L'Tova, the story of Nachum Ish Gamzu, which I'm sure that everyone has heard this story before. Nachum Ish Gamzu, right, he was asked to bring, right, a chest of jewels and gold to the Caesar. And he's carrying his chest and he stops by an inn. And what happens? The innkeeper decides to take out all the jewels and fill it up with sand instead. Right? Gamzu, he brings it to the palace. He goes in to see the Caesar and he goes to give him this beautiful bribe of a bunch of sand. When they opened it up, he says, Gamzu L'Tova. Gamzu L'Tova. It means not that this is going to, everything that Hashem does is for the good. I don't see it now. No, this is good. And of course we know the story. Eliyahu Navi came and he said, why don't you use it? It must be the sand that Avram Avinu threw against his enemies. And they're having a fight with in the northern border, and they took it and they threw the sand, and the sand turned into spears and everyone, they won the war, and they gave him back a whole chest of gold and silver and jewels, and happily ever after. But the point being what? The point being was that every step of the way, the Gemara says that Nachum Ish Gamzu said, Gamzu l'toiva. Gamzu l'toiva means not that it's bad, and I'm hoping that one day I will see how this whole thing works out. This right now is good. This is good. There is no bad. This is the perspective that the Alter Rebbe is going to bring to us now in chapter 26, which we're going to start next week, this point. But this idea that there is no such thing as bad is a very high level. It's a very high level that the Alter Rebbe is demanding of us. But this is a derech in Avodas Hashem. And this is going to bring a person to simcha. So, to recap, what we've done here is we started our discussion. We know that the only way to serve Hashem is b'simcha. And we know that there are lots of things that are getting in the way of my simcha. And what the Alter Rebbe is saying is that your brain is extremely powerful. And you have to use your brain to be able to make yourself be b'simcha. Because your brain has the capabilities to make that happen. And the way to make it happen is by looking at things from a different perspective. Going back to our story of Disney World from yesterday, right? You have to see a bigger picture of what's going on here. It might be easiest to start with the first level, which we talked about, the level of this is bad. But you know what? I'd rather face this little bad down here than to have to deal with Gehenna upstairs, right? It's an investment. Way number 2, which is, I know that this is supposed to be good. I don't see it. I know it's supposed to be good. And I know that Hashem is challenging me to see the good inside of it. And if I can see the good inside of it, I can make it good. Tracht gut wird sein good. I can make it good. And way number 3 is there is no such bad thing as bad. Gam zu l'tova.